Hey Lakewood 7th graders, this is Miss V again, and this is video 5, and it's all about percent increase and decrease. And I'm going to show you a way to do this, and then in subsequent videos I'm going to show you just a little bit more sophisticated way to do this. So before you watch the next few videos, I'd really like you to spend some time practicing this and really make sure you're comfortable with it. So the first example I'm going to do is a situation where we know we have 300 students at Lakewood. And you know, the triangle area is growing very rapidly. And let's say that we expand in a year and we admit 40 more students than we have right now. So Lakewood grows to be 340 students. I'm interested in knowing what percentage growth that is. And so what I'm going to do is use the percent proportion to answer that question. So I'm going to say that I want to find some number out of 100 that will tell me my percent. But notice I'm interested in the quantity that grew, and the part that grew is this 40. So I have to find the difference between those two numbers, which is 40. And I have to divide that by the original amount. Keep in mind, always when you calculate percent change, you will be dividing by the original amount. So I need to go ahead and scale that down. That's dividing by 3. So if I divide my numerator by 3, that means I'm dividing 40 by 3. So I'm going to go off in the margin of my paper and just see what I can do. And what I notice is I'm going to get a repeating decimal here. See how this pattern is repeating? So that tells me that 13, this x has to equal 13 1/3, or 13.3 repeating. So the answer is Lakewood has experienced a 13% growth. So this is percent growth. Let's do one where we have actually a decline in the population. So in this situation, I'm going to make up a hypothetical scenario where we are biologists that study pollinators, and we are noticing that the bee population used to be 1,000 some years ago, and in the same location we now have 200 bees, and we would like to know the percent decline. And we know it's declined because we started out with more than we ended up with. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to find the difference, and the difference is we subtracted 800, didn't we? And I'm going to set up my percent proportion. I'm going to say, okay, well, I always compare to the original, so I always have the difference over the original, and that is equal to some number over 100, and that number will give me the percentage. So in order to scale down, I just divided by 10, it looks like. And so if I divide my numerator by 10, I end up getting 80. And that tells me that I've had an 80% decline in my population. And again, you see that you're getting smaller. You'll also see that number is subtraction. That negative sign is a big hint that you've got decay. So I'm going to do, the next one I'm going to do is kind of a tricky one, but it's a very common one. And I would like you to explain to me why it works this way. So here's the situation. I'm a retailer. Let's say I'm J. Crew, and I go and buy a shirt for $20. And I decide my markup, that I'm going to mark it up to $30. And so I'm interested in knowing what my percentage markup is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing that I've done in the last two examples. I'm going to say, well, I added $10. And if I divide $10 by 20, right, the change, which is right here, by the original, which is right here, and then I scale that up to a percentage, I'm going to multiply 20 times 5, so I should multiply 50 times 5. What I figure out is I've got a 50% markup there. I've marked my shirt up 50% of 20, which happens to be 10. So let's say that I put the shirt out on the floor and the shirt sits there and sits there and sits there and sits there and nobody wants to buy it. And I decide that I'm going to take this $30 shirt and I'm going to do a 50% markdown. We would think that we would be reducing it to $20 given this math right here. But what happens when you take half of 30? The 50% markdown means we're going to subtract, we're going to subtract 50% of 30, which is $15. So when my shirt gets marked down, I'm going to sell it for $15. And that's different than the $20. And that's what I'd like you to explain to me. So somewhere in your work this week, I want you to think about these two ideas. And I want you to think of an explanation and write an explanation to me of why when we do a 50% markup, we get 30. But when we do a 50% markdown, we don't go back to 20. And I would like to know the answer to that. Thanks.